Hey world, this is Living Water brought to you by David S. and the Holy Spirit. Um, we still in Matthew 14. I just want to kick it with you for a little while from verse 23. The word says, after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on a mountain by himself to pray. This was after he fed the over the 5,000. That we talked about in the last video log. He went up to the mountain to pray. When the evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking by the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, and they automatically said it was a ghost. They were terrified, and they automatically said it was a ghost, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately, Jesus responds to fear the same way he responds to faith. So, after the word says they cried out in fear, but Jesus immediately spoke to them. Take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid. If you notice, whenever Jesus says something, the enemy says something. Whenever the enemy says something, Jesus has a counter. He always has a response. So when they cried out in fear, Jesus' response to the fear was, take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid. That's heavy. On like a whole nother level. Heavy. And Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. Jesus replied, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when the wind started blowing, he was afraid and began to sink. And he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately responded to him and reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Wow, this is like loaded. This is loaded. I think this is great because I'm seeing that for everything that is good, the enemy has a counter for, but Jesus has the last counter. When Peter got off the boat, Peter was full of faith when he did it, just for him to get off the boat and walk on water. Just mind you, the winds were blowing and they were beating up on the ship prior to them even recognizing Jesus. So it was a fearful situation anyway. And so Peter had a certain amount of faith just to be able to walk off the water in the first place. And the word says Peter got off the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when the wind came, when that trial came, he became afraid. He became afraid. The problem was Peter took his eyes off the ball. When Peter's eyes was on Jesus and his focus was on Christ, Peter was walking on water. But when Peter looked at the circumstances around him, he started to fall into those very circumstances. How long has Christ been telling you, don't take your eyes off me? Focus on me. I'm your help. And hell was all around you, but you didn't listen to that small voice. and you just got caught up in the dilemma that invaded you, and you got subdued and submersed in it. It's no different from yesterday. It's the same thing. God is constantly telling us, keep your eyes on me. Do not doubt. I can't even work with doubt. The word says I could do anything but fail, but I can't even start to begin to work with doubt. So he keeps on saying, you of little faith, why do you doubt? Not why did you doubt, because you're still in the state of doubting. That's why he's saying, why do you doubt? So the question I'm asking you today is, why do you doubt? Faith is similar to lifting weight. It's hard to believe. The truth of the matter is, I didn't know how to believe. But once you take the step to believe, to try to believe, it's like the Lord he'll begin to court you, and he'll start giving you little reasons to believe. And little by little, you start to, with every trial that's conquered and with every test that's passed, your faith starts to build and starts to build. And next thing you know, you just throwing up weight like you couldn't even imagine. God is a progressive God, and he's constantly moving forward. And if we're going to follow him, we must be constantly moving forward. Peter's seen enough at this point, if you ask me. He's seen so much to be able to just trust God. They watched him break 5 loaves just a little while prior. I want to say in the same day. Break 5 loaves and 2 fishes and feed over 5,000 people. What else you got to see? Is it enough to see your Lord walking on water? The boat is saying, the word is saying that the boat was a long way from the shore by the fourth hour, but late in the evening. So I think that if we could just have that faith, if we could just not have that fear. But the amazing thing is that God is expecting us to have his power in order not to have that fear. He's expecting us. He's looking at each one of our hearts, and he's looking for a little bit of himself. He's looking for himself in us. Because if he finds himself, he'll find faith. If he finds himself, he'll find healing. If he finds himself, he'll find joy. If he finds himself, there won't be fear. There'll be trust. And still, he shows himself faithful. So even after Peter feared, he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord still heard his cry. What kind of God is that we serve? When I used to sell guns, I got shot at. And I was in the wrong. And I got shot at from 5 feet away in Churchland, Virginia, in Portsmouth, in Portsmouth, Virginia. And the Lord heard my cry. A bullet didn't touch me. He's still faithful. So even after Peter sinned, even after I did wrong, he still heard my cry. He still heard Peter's cry. But he's still saying, why do you fear? Why won't you trust me? Until next time, it's David S. We signing out with Living Word. Holla at your boy. Peace.